This episode of Tales from the Backlog is brought to you by the wonderful patrons of the Tube Podcast Network. Some personal heroes of mine like Chris Nelson, the Top 3 Podcast crew, Zolgeek, Eric Guess, Rick Firestone, Nick Fakori, Jill, Soccer, ZNA, Cupcake, Kyle, Christian S., Matt aka Stormageddon, JD, Doug Leaf, Jason Emery, Rob Shack, Brian Skirsha, Jake Martin, Randall, Jenny E., and many more have all chosen to show their support for Tales from the Backlog by going to patreon.com/realdavejackson to throw a few bucks a month my way, and in return they're getting some wonderful treats like the ability to vote in polls for what games I do on the show. Today's game, F-Zero X, was the winner of one of those polls. They also get bonus episodes, and patrons at the higher tiers can be able to submit games for those polls. If that sounds interesting to you and you want to support your favorite podcaster named Dave, well, aside from the other Dave that's on this episode, once again, patreon.com/realdavejackson. Your support is always appreciated. With that being said, let's get this race started.
3, 2, 1.
Hello everybody, my name is Dave Jackson, and you're listening to Tales from the Backlog. This is a video games review podcast where each week I'm joined by a guest to bring a game out of the backlog, play it, and discuss. My guest today is a friend of the show, host of Remember 64 and Back in My Day podcasts, coming to you at 900 kilometers per hour, Dave Pietrangelo. Welcome.
Thank you. 900, at least just to start. To start.
That's right. We're going to hit the accelerator. We're going to keep going. Yeah. If you may have guessed from that little intro there, or because you clicked on the episode with this title, today we're talking about F-Zero X, which is a futuristic racing game developed by Nintendo EAD and published by Nintendo for the Nintendo 64 in 1998. And it's good to have you on the show, Dave, because you are the host of a dedicated Nintendo 64 podcast, which we'll talk about at the end of the episode here. But for now, just want to throw that out there. We've got a true blue Nintendo 64 head on the show here today.
For better or for worse, I am here, everybody.
Yeah. This game today, F-Zero X, is on the show because it was the winner of a Patreon poll. It demolished the competition. It lapped the competition, to use some little racing game terminology for everybody. Thank you to everybody who voted in the poll. If you are listening and you'd like to vote for future games to appear on the show, you can go to patreon.com/realdavejackson. And yeah, we have polls every month for a game to come on the show. This game, like we said, dominated the competition. This is a special episode. I wanted to do, actually all the games that were in that Patreon poll were games that have no stories. Because I kind of found myself on the show having a lot of games, doing a bunch of work in spoiler sections, what do I really want to talk about? What's the themes we got to dig into? And then I was like, you know what? I'm going to talk about a game where there's no story. You just race. All gameplay.
Every once in a while, you just want to hit the gas and go, right?
Exactly.
That's pretty much it.
Yeah. So no spoiler section in this episode. There is no story. There is backstory, which we're going to talk about because it's real weird and fun and goofy. Yeah. But this is not a game that you can be spoiled on. So no spoiler section. If someone is listening and has never played F-Zero X, we've prepared some elevator pitches for the top of the show. I wrote down, it is racing at 1,000 kilometers per hour to a badass speed metal soundtrack. What would you say, Dave?
I'd say get out of the elevator as fast as you can because these vehicles are going to destroy it in an instant. Also, fast AF racing with wild futuristic environments and a massive grid of vehicles.
Yep, exactly. It is fast. If we're going to use like 2 words to describe F-Zero X, fast racing.
Yeah.
Or I will spell out what you wrote, what you abbreviated there, fast as fuck racing. This game took me a few hours to like kind of run through the Grand Prix modes. There is no story mode in this game. Later games do have story modes, but not this one. It is just pure racing. So a couple hours to beat the Grand Prix modes on 2 difficulties. I was not able to beat them on the expert difficulty. I played this on Steam Deck because I used to own this on N64, but it was a casualty of my collection turning over several times through the years. So I played this on Steam Deck. It runs great on the old emulator. Nice. Dave, how long would you say this took you? Where did you play it?
So I played it on Switch because it's on the expansion pack for N64. Right. So great place to play it right now. I think it's a very easy way to access it. I do have, I'll hold up my cartridge. I do have a cartridge.
Nice.
As well. I, for whatever reason, did not put this in the console when I was playing this over the last couple of weeks. I just, you know what? It was just easy to I had the Switch beside me at all times kind of because I'm kind of playing through a couple other, like at least one other game for my show at the moment. And it was just easy to flip between the games. So I just kind of, and they're both very different games as well. So it was actually very easy to do that. So it controls pretty well. It works pretty well on there. It's very slick. Switch kind of makes the colors pop a little bit more, I think, on that screen and everything. So that was really nice. And the expert difficulty, I definitely got my butt kicked and was not able to get through that. But I probably played it at least like 3 to 4 hours in total. I think it took me a while to really get a handle of the game because it's been a long time since I played it. So I think it took me maybe a little bit longer than it did for you, at least on that standard middle difficulty, to kind of, I guess, quote unquote, beat or complete those GPs. But yeah, I mean, the races are so short. You could repeat the GPs and the races and stuff like that and still have a really good few hours, no problem, even if you didn't come in first. Yeah,
absolutely. This is a great game to just pick up and play for 15 minutes, just do a couple races. So I did do that from time to time, including in the 15 or 20 minutes before we started recording tonight. I was like, I got a little bit of time. Go run Mute City again.
Yes.
So we'll start out every episode as we do. So we'll start out this episode, just like we do every episode, by talking about our histories with this game. Like I said at the top, you run an N64 dedicated podcast, so you have some degree of affection toward the Nintendo 64. So when did you first play this? And what's your history with the series?
Yeah, as I wrote a little bit in our show notes, a little bit of a peek behind the curtain here is I definitely played this game and I definitely played it a decent amount, but I have more experience playing this series on the Super Nintendo. I never owned either of these games. I have this cartridge of F-Zero X with me, but I got that much later. But I would say that this is one of those games that we rented a decent amount, I think. And because like you just mentioned, it's easy to just pick up and play. And as a kid, like a younger kid, that's perfect. You know, when I was 10, 12 years old with this console, like that's exactly what you're looking for. And playing it solo, playing it single player is still a lot of fun. So I think that was pretty much it. I don't know why I never continued with this series or why I didn't have it like at the top of my racing list at the time. Cause like I love like just like a sci-fi setting like this. Like it's so over the top sci-fi that it should have just been right up my alley. But I think honestly at this time, I think I was still playing and probably continued to play Diddy Kong Racing out of any racing game on this console over and over and over again. So I think it overshadowed a lot of others. So I had some experience, but not as much as I actually, when I really sat down and thought about it, not as much as I really thought. I thought I had more, but this series is really just the first and this game. And that's pretty much it. I haven't played any of the others. And a few hours here and there, I would say, with either of these, and that's pretty much it. Yeah. So I had this game on the N64. This was definitely in our collection when we were growing up, and we played it a lot. We had Mario Kart also. So it was like this and Mario Kart were the racing games. And it's like, do you want to have fun with your friends and just kind of goof around, play Mario Kart? Do you want to play a real fast, much more difficult racing game? Then play F-Zero X.
So we did have this. We played it a ton. I never played the Super Nintendo version until it went on the Switch Online service. And yeah, kind of like you said, despite really, really loving this game and owning a GameCube, we never bought F-Zero GX. Yeah. And I owned a Game Boy Advance. I didn't even know there were F-Zero games on the Game Boy Advance back then. So, and I think that a lot of people would probably say something similar because they stopped making these games because nobody buys them. So
I you know what? Like it's one of those series that definitely would do well. And I think, I mean, most recently there's a little bit of, there's access to this series on Switch Online. So I think that, there's 3 versions of these games essentially, or of this franchise right now that you could play online. And like, maybe that's a hint. Maybe they'll start getting like, letters in the mail, so to speak, of kids that want to play this, or people our age that want to play this again. Cause I think they should go back to this. And, we'll get into sort of backstory stuff like you mentioned, but like story, quote unquote story or not, I just think there's a good time to be had. So it's a shame that it kind of like just dropped like 20 years ago.
Yeah, we kind of talked about this in the episode we did about Super Smash Brothers, like introducing us to new characters and new series, but like there's an entire generation of people who were born and grew up without a new F-Zero game. So they know about F-Zero because Captain Falcon's in Smash Brothers. Yeah. And he's a like kind of an iconic Smash character at that too. So maybe now that F-Zero 99 is on the Switch, well, if you're listening to this in a couple years, it might not still be there. But now that it's there, maybe like people will take this new format, try it out, enjoy it, and maybe that'll send a little bit of a message. Yeah, there are some indie developers who are making F-Zero type games that I'm excited for because again, Nintendo's not going to do it. So
yeah. You gotta put it in everybody else's hands apparently, because apparently Nintendo doesn't like money. I don't know. Or maybe they do, and that's why, like you said, they didn't keep making them.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's they really like money, and people just didn't spend money on these games, unfortunately. So maybe the free one will generate enough interest in this type of racing game.
Yeah, and if you're playing 99 like that as well, you at least have access to the Super Nintendo version of this game, so you can play like what that's based off of. But if you have the expansion pack, you paid it a couple extra bucks for the year or whatever to do it. There's only so many at this moment, at this recording, there's only so many N64 games on there. Mm-hmm. This is one of those ones that, again, like you said, you could pick up and play. And I think if you have a handheld version of Switch, if you have it on your couch or in bed or something, this is a great game to do that. So I think it could be something that people go back to because it's a much easier pick up and play than something like, I don't know, like Paper Mario, for example, that's on there, or the Zelda games that are going to take a lot of time, right? So I think that could be a good selling point, and I hope, honestly, I hope that it is. I hope that it is.
I agree, and the reason that we're like so hopeful for the future of the series is that F-Zero X is fucking awesome. I love this game. It had been, I don't know, like maybe 10 years since I last played it. I think the last time I played this was on an N64. Yeah. The last time I was at someone's house and they had it, or the last time that I owned it, I don't know. But I just picked this up for the first time after a long time, and it was like just putting on a coat that perfectly fits. It was just, a nice pair of sweatpants. I'm comfy. I'm back home. I love this game. It is very difficult on the higher levels, and it kind of ceases to be fun if you take it too seriously, I think. But for just playing on like the easier and like the standard difficulty, running through the Grand Prix, listening to this, like this is one of my favorite soundtracks in gaming. So just jumping back into this was a complete blast. I'm very happy to have gone back.
Yeah, no, you're right. It is very good. And I think that, the difficulty ramps a little too quickly for my liking, because I want to just sort of take this as it is. I want to take a game like this in stride. I want to just sort of go through races, not really care. And like, okay, I came in 5th this time. Okay, I made a mistake. Or, was getting too aggressive and my vehicle blew up. Okay, my mistake kind of thing. But then like when I got to that middle difficulty and I was sort of in like the fourth race of one of the GPs, I was like, I just want to, I gotta win. Like, and I just, and I wasn't like sort of spam saving or anything before each race so I could go back. I just wanted to see how I could do each time. And man, I replayed some of the GPs like 3 or 4 times to be able to come in first. And like, I wanted to come in first because that, unlocks things and whatever, but it's still fun. Even when you're behind, when you're losing, just the way that they really make you feel like you have speed works. Like you are in this like suspended track, which is like kind of just like in space essentially when you really think about it. With all these loops and turns and walls and whatever and all this stuff. But like, I don't know. I don't know if it's because somehow they really nailed the speed part of it. And especially when you compare it to its predecessor, it's not even a comparison. How much they really add to that feeling. And that's the key to it, I think, is really feeling like even if you're in last place, you are bombing down this track.
Yep. It says down in the corner, it tells you how fast you're going, and it's like, 900 kilometers an hour, and you feel like you are going that fast. And you're completely right. That's why I don't like the Super Nintendo version, because it doesn't feel like you're going that fast. And in the N64 version, it does. I also don't like the GameCube version. I've gone on to like try it, and I don't like it because they ruined the soundtrack. The soundtrack is not the pounding, like electric guitar shredding soundtrack. It's like it's not a relaxed like electronic soundtrack, but it's not pulse pounding the way it should be if you're going 1,200 kilometers an hour. And I just don't like it. So this is, in my opinion, like by far the best one. And I kind of wish that F-Zero 99 was built on this. I just think that this is the better game. If there's a technical reason why they couldn't have 99 of these cars on these tracks, I kind of get it, but I'm just kind of wish casting here.
It would be nice. Yeah. I think you would really, the simplicity of the Super Nintendo of the original version of 99 and stuff. I understand why it's structured from that engine, I guess you could call it, or from that version. But yeah, if you had, I mean, that's the thing. What's crazy about this game is that there's 30 vehicles in the race to start. That's a lot, man. That is crazy. All they had to do was like maybe bump that to 50, and it's all actual people. The chaos would just be amazing. It would be the wild. best chaos in any way whatsoever. Like it would be so much fun. But I think the I have nitpicks with the way the game controls and stuff, and we'll get to that. But like, I really think that the way this feels is just far better.
Yep.
That's what
it is. It's a win. It's a definite win for the type of racing that this is setting out to be. Yeah. So let's check out some of that soundtrack. When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about not like the plot, but we'll talk a little bit about the story of F-Zero because it's worth hearing.
Yes.
So F-Zero, if you are thinking like that's a cool title for a sci-fi racing game, I agree. It's a cool sci-fi title, but F-Zero is actually the name of the race that you're doing. It is an intergalactic like death race, basically. This is explained in manuals and backstory in various games. There's also an anime, from what I could tell. I did not watch it, but The F-Zero is a death race where all the baddest people from around the galaxy come to race for glory and to settle feuds and all of this stuff. So I didn't know that all of these characters had backstories back when I was playing it. But
No,
a little bit of
not.
a little bit of Googling, I was kind of like checking through wikis and I was like, oh, I remember the character Samurai Goro. What's his ship called? Maybe we'll talk about, oh, there's a backstory here. And then I looked up the manual for the game. And so in the game itself, it doesn't tell you these things at all, but the manual has little bios written. F-Zero GX, which is the one from GameCube, goes more into story and backstory for the characters. So I just thought it'd be fun to talk about some of these characters, their backstories, and like, if you're following along, which I hope you are, I hope you're listening to this. You know what? If this is just white noise when you work, that's cool too. I love you too. But if you're following along, listen to these character backstories and just think about the world that this is painting. You know,
Yes.
the world building here. So, Dave, you want to take turns going through some of these?
Yeah, man. Yeah.
right.
I'll. You know what? I'll start with. Want me to start with Captain Falcon?
Yeah,
Let's
sure,
start-
of course. The mascot.
Let's start with the mascot, the man himself, Mr. Super Smash Falcon Punch himself. One of the best bounty hunters in the galaxy, one that has earned him many enemies. Ooh. Falcon joined F-Zero desiring to fuel his competitive drive with his own machine, the Blue Falcon. During his long career, he has consistently thwarted the plans of Black Shadow and other evil forces, both on and off the Grand Prix circuits. Much of Falcon's past is shrouded in mystery.
So like I was saying, like, so he has this rivalry with Black Shadow and they duke it out off of the racetrack, but then when F-Zero happens, then it's game time. Black Shadow is also a character in F-Zero X. Black Shadow's bio reads, he is a cold-blooded king of evil, feared by all. So the king of evil comes to race in these races with everybody else. He's wanted by the Galactic Federation, yet often shows up at F-Zero because they're extraterritorial. The Galactic Federation has no jurisdiction at F-Zero. Anything goes here. So Captain Falcon has had a lot of success off the racetrack, thwarting his plans. So Black Shadow wants nothing more than to see the end of this meddling bounty hunter, preferably in front of millions of fans. And his car is called the Black Bull. So Black Shadow is not only out to defeat Captain Falcon, but to embarrass him in front of all the fans at F-Zero.
If there's going to be any victory, embarrassment has to come with it for your competition. It has to,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Why go for it? Why drive at 1,200 kilometers an hour unless you're going to embarrass the Blue Falcon that is 2 spots behind you in the standings?
Exactly. Yeah. So we have this rivalry between these two kind of main characters here, but there are 30 cars. There are 30 drivers. So all of them have backstories and they get fun, I think.
They do. I want to pick one out. Well, first, actually, you know what? First, I'm going to go to the next one on our list that we're looking at right now, because I read this as Michael Caine.
I did too. Yeah.
I thought it said Michael Caine. So I am not going to do a British accent because I can't, and I can't sound like the one and only Michael Caine, but I will talk about Michael Chain.
Right.
Michael Chain is the head of a racing clan known as the Bloody Chain, which, by the way, Bloody Chain is kind of cool. Definitely straight out of an 80s movie. Like that's what they're going for. I mean, that's what they're going for, I think, for the most part with this game. And these backstories and everything, but I like it. Bloody Chain, I like where you're going with it. The membership was 10,000 members at one point.
What numbers for a racing gang? 10,000 people in a gang of racers.
Specifically racing.
Yeah, exactly.
Never mind The Sopranos. Never mind any of these Yakuza and all this. The bloody
Tony Soprano's got
just
nothing on Michael Chain.
Nothing, man. Michael Chain is just going to drag you around with his bloody chains and run you over at 1,200 kilometers an hour.
Well, he'll try.
He'll try, yeah. He said it says that he entered F-Zero to showcase skills and represent the crew, but his efforts have failed. So somehow he just keeps coming back, I guess. He initially joined the circuit to represent the gang, but his lack of wins has caused a lot of members to leave. And the organization's membership has drastically decreased. He drives the wild boar. This guy has the saddest story.
It's so he joined to represent the crew, and now it just keeps getting worse. And he's the guy who's like, all right, just one more race. This is the time. And
this might be this description might be the reason why they don't have the backstories in the game, because no one would pick this guy because he's the sad sack who never wins.
Exactly. And you know what? On my other podcast, a top 3 podcast, we did top 3 fictional vehicles. And one of my co-hosts, Aaron, picked Michael Chain's wild boar car on the top 3 list. I have a feeling he wouldn't have picked it if he knew the backstory.
Honestly, because it's kind of depressing, right? Like,
yeah. I mean, he looks badass. He's this giant, like, yoked up like dude with a bunch of chains wrapped around his shoulders and stuff. Yep. But apparently can't race. Just real bad at racing.
He does have a cool looking vehicle. I will say that. Like, it sort of has these, like, I don't know, the hood is like split up into like multiple pieces sort of thing. I don't know if they're just like air vents or what. I don't know. But what he did remind me of is one of the, I'm pretty sure this, I don't know the name, I should look it up. But he looks like one of the sort of like mini bosses or one of the main bosses in a lot of Double Dragon and Battletoads games, where he's just like this big bulking guy, and he has like really like big punches and fists and stuff. He has like a big upper body and tiny legs. He's like sort of that kind of animation, and he looks just like him. It's so funny. The guy in those games doesn't have like the chains, and he's not using a vehicle or whatever, but anything that references back to Super Double Dragon or Double Dragon Battletoads, the crossover game that they had, I'm all for it. So it looked like, nice. To me, that's what I saw.
So we have Captain Falcon and Black Shadow. They're rivals, bounty hunter, king of evil. Michael Chain heads up a gang. I would like to introduce Bio-Rex, who is an actual dinosaur. So we have this aspect of the galactic society. Bio-Rex is Bio-Rex is a genetically engineered creature designed by a group of scientists who would then form a racing team. Again, it's Jurassic Park, but for the purpose of forming a racing team, because in this universe, nothing matters except for racing.
Absolutely.
What is the racing team called, you might ask? Well, it's called Dinosaur Racing Team. And they designed his car, which is called the Big Fang.
Dinosaur Racing Team.
Yeah, I get the feeling the writers for F-Zero were just like, give us all of your weirdest and dumbest and most fun ideas possible.
That's really what it is. I mean, I think you look at these descriptions that we're reading, and like you said, there's 30 of them. So this is just the tip of the iceberg, right? But then even look at like the vehicles, like only some of them really make sense and stuff, but like a couple of them sort of match the characters, I guess you could say, a little bit. I'm trying to find, there's one character. Oh, here. Okay. So there's one description that I saw through the manual that got me the most out of any of them. And we've hit some good ones already. I will say that.
Okay.
But this is Silver Nielsen. And Silver Nielsen is not only, playing off the whole like Silver Fox idea of like an older guy that's racing or whatever.
Yeah.
If you were to ask what the age of a silver fox would be, sort of idea, I think people would say 50s, 60s, something like that. Yeah, somewhere around there. No, this guy's 97. Not only is he 97, he has a huge Santa Claus beard, and he has a cane. But he's able to race what it says here, a 1,530 kilogram machine. And his body strength is B. He has very good boost at A, which is interesting. And his grip is E, so it's not very good. But his description is excellent. Nielsen has participated in more Grand Prix races than anyone, but has yet to win.
Oh, man.
His age has drawn criticism, but because he's resentful of newer machines, the other racers are avoiding him. He's this poor old guy, man.
Yeah,
He's so lonely.
Just can't win. He's the guy. He's like, I need to win one and then I'll retire. He's like me out at the park playing basketball. I need to make one more 3-pointer, then I'll go home.
Or just one in general.
Just one in general. Yeah.
For me, it would be one 3-pointer, just like ever. You know?
That sounds like what's going on with him too. That's great.
Honestly, oh my God. I was just like, you got it. Like, I just looked at the guy's picture and was like, wait, there's like, okay, let's just check this guy out. Like 97. They are not shying away from the fact that, like, it's not other character in comparison. Other characters are 26 on this page, 18, 36, 41, 24.
There's one that's like 215 years old though.
I mean, there's a couple unknowns as well. It's a couple unknowns.
Right.
Pico, who's one of the early characters you can race as, and I think he's in the SNES one as well. He's 123, but in brackets it says, or so he says.
Oh, okay. So he's at least 170.
At least, right? Yeah, he's going down as like in his age class or weight class, you know?
Yeah, he's like some of those baseball players where they're actually 15 years older than they say they are.
Yeah.
Speaking of old, I've got another one that I think is really funny. So we've got, some people, we got a dinosaur, the skull, who's an actual skeleton. Bio says the skull was once the greatest driver of the F Max Grand Prix, which is a competition that predates the coming of F-Zero by some 200 years. Thanks to inexplicable powers of science and black magic, he has returned to the world to do what, you might ask? To race. He's here to race again. He's back racing. There's nothing else to do in this galaxy.
He didn't do enough of that, apparently. He just...
No.
No one has any... Like you said, no one has any purpose unless it
except
is
to race. Yeah. I feel bad for the people that aren't F-Zero racers because their lives are just meaningless.
So, based on this game, I don't know, and even, honestly, even the original, I don't know if there are any other people in this world because the tracks are empty.
The tracks are empty, but there are some levels where it looks like there's like apartment buildings and stuff down below you.
That's true. Yeah, it could just be for all these racers because apparently everybody wants to race, and there's at least 30 of them to start.
Yeah. You want to run through a couple or like one more each?
Yeah, I was looking in the manual ones are kind of cool too because it shows it doesn't go through all of the characters, or maybe it does. Actually, now that I'm flipping through it. Zoda is one of them.
Yep.
Which similar to who you were talking about with Black Shadow, being like, evil. What was the
King of Evil?
King of Evil. That's it. Yeah. So Zoda is not the King of Evil, but the incarnation of evil and intent on conquering Earth.
Okay.
So why he's racing the Grand Prix is still a mystery, which seems to be the question that we keep asking about all these guys, but hey, It is what it is. His past disputes against the Arrows and Captain Falcon are well known. So he's just there to thwart them. I will say he has a very cool looking racer. It's sort of like a triangle with a nose out front, and he has sort of these like blue lightning bolts on a black background. Looks kind of cool. So I'm all for that. Kind of looks cool, but the age is unknown. The incarnation of evil thing is odd. Well, but he's bad for the sake of being bad, and you got to have some of that, I guess, in these goofy games.
Yeah, that like taking over the universe is it's stressful. Sometimes you got to go blow off steam. You got to go race.
Sometimes you just got to hit a boost and let it fly,
knock somebody off of the track.
Knock someone off the track. Yeah.
I guess the last one I'll bring up is Beastman, who, if you look at his picture, Beastman is a guy wearing a dinosaur costume or a crocodile costume, I suppose. Dinosaur. So Beastman already kind of, why are you wearing a costume when you're racing in these death races? But Beastman's bio explains why he's wearing a costume. Beastman was once attacked by a large space crocodile, which changed his life forever, which makes sense, to be honest. Would change my life too.
Are you sure it does?
Well, if we're assuming that there are large space crocodiles, then getting attacked by one would change your life.
I'll give you that. All right.
Donning the attire of a dinosaur, he became the Beast Hunter. His outfit was not only able to hide his identity, but his apparent shyness as well. He's shy. That's why he wears the costume. And that's why he's racing an F-Zero.
The reason why.
Yeah.
He has one of the most generic names for his racer as well.
The Hyperspeeder.
Hyperspeeder.
Yeah.
Again, I like the way it looks. It kind of looks like this old school cartoony version of like an old war jet sort of thing. It's got like the shark teeth and eye and stuff at the front, like whatever that sort of design is supposed to be called.
Mm-hmm.
All for it. Until you got to the shy part of the description, he just sounded like Kraven. Like he's just Kraven from Spider-Man. But he's shy, so he's shy Kraven.
They're like, all right, we can't just put Kraven in the game. We have to change something. Okay, he's shy. How about that?
Boom, sold.
Yeah, exactly. Promotion. There's one more that I thought was really funny. There's an octopus in the game. His name is Octoman. Octoman is a representative of Takora, which is a planet currently at odds with the Milky Way Space Federation. Of course they are. The confrontation between the Federation and Takora grows more tense and drawn out by the day. The Takorians are surrounded by enemies, are in a very unstable economic state. This is all direct from the source here. I didn't make this up. Due to this, Octoman wants to win the Grand Prix so that he can pay the education costs for his children.
Honestly,
he's the only one with noble reasons to race.
I have to tell you that in a way you are wrong, sir, because at the beginning of this episode you told everybody there is no story here.
That's true.
There is a story. There is a story with Octoman alone.
Octoman out practicing on the track all day long. He missed dinner. He comes home late. His family's mad at him. He's like, I'm doing all this for you.
Eat your spinach.
Yeah.
Oh my God. That, like, it's just, they don't have to do this, make goofy looking characters, make interesting looking like racers and ships and stuff, build the tracks that they built and stuff and sort of leave it at that. I mean, it's totally fine. And they could be, some of the descriptions we've read are longer. The ones in the manual are shorter because they just don't have the space. Just leave the ones in the manual. Like, you don't have to go deeper than that. Just leave it as is. But no, this guy is getting involved with the Milky Way and education, and he means business. Octoman means business, and I love it.
Yeah. You've got the guy who's just trying to pay for his kids' education. You've got the guy who's desperately trying to gain status for his gang, but every time he races, it gets worse and worse. There's so F-Zero GX has a story mode, and I'm much more inclined after putting these notes together and reading all of these to go back and play F-Zero GX.
Yes.
Because I want to know what, so they take all these backstories, then what happens? What is the story mode going to be like?
How do they morph these together?
Yeah, exactly. So, and we read maybe 7 or 8 of these things. Yeah. There's 20 more that you can go read on the wiki or in the manual for F-Zero X. So again, there's no plot in the game, but I did have so much fun going back and reading these character bios that I'm really glad we got to spend some time going through them and just kind of, again, painting the picture of this world that F-Zero takes place in, where everything revolves around these races.
Everything. Literally everything.
So moving into like the actual act of playing F-Zero X, the first thing we got to talk about before we even talk about racing is we got to talk about this soundtrack. I've already said that this is like probably in my top 3 to 5 video game soundtracks ever. It is a speed metal, like shredding guitars. Some of the songs have like hyper compressed, like kind of death metal vocals, like growling and stuff like that. But very heavy on, again, shredding electric guitars, some keyboards and stuff like that. It's fast paced, it's pounding, super melodic too. Very recognizable melodies. Like people who probably, if you never played this game but you play Smash Brothers, you probably know Mute City and Big Blue for the F-Zero stages there. But this is a soundtrack I love cover to cover. I listen to it probably more than any other video game soundtrack.
Nice.
If you cohabitate Discord servers with me, you probably see me drop F-Zero music in the music channels like every couple months or so. I fucking love it. What do you think?
It's awesome. I think what always impresses me with soundtracks that even if the music isn't my style of music, right? Like,
yeah.
If it fits with the theme and really gets you into the mode of what the game is, especially something like this, where it's all about chaos and speed and being able to sort of, obviously go as fast as you can and win a race, whatever. It just, even though these races are short, I don't know, the music just gets you pumping through these 1.5 to 2.5 minute races. And that's all you need, right? Like in short spurts, it's fine. Like I understand sitting there and listening to the soundtrack, having it on the background and stuff like that. But like the way that they constructed all these and they just fit with like the style of the track. They fit with sort of like the backgrounds. They fit with, I don't know, it just makes sense to me and it kicks major ass. Like the second I turned on the game on the Switch and just the menu started, and then I just went and clicked on the first race, which I think the first race is Mute City, which I think it is for all the games. I was like, this song's the best. This is the best song. I love it. It's stuck in my head. Like ever since I pressed go on the first race a few weeks ago, it's been stuck in my head, and I don't mind it at all because it kicks ass.
Yep. I think there's only like one track on the soundtrack that I don't like love with my entire heart, and that's the Death Race song. But it might be connected to the fact that we'll talk about it later. I think the Death Race is trash in this game, so maybe there's a connection there. But like if I'm listening to the soundtrack on YouTube, it is just straight through the entire soundtrack. I'll listen to it all. I seek out all of those people on YouTube that do like metal electric guitar covers of video game music, because this is what I want to hear them play. Nice. This and like Xenoblade Chronicles music and stuff like that. So this is fantastic. The SNES game had the same type of music, but it was with the Super Nintendo sound chip, of course. And it was really weird to me turning on, again, like I mentioned before, F-Zero GX totally changed the way the music is. And it just doesn't have that pounding, like we said, 1,000 kilometers an hour feel to it like this one does, which is a shame.
Yeah, it really is. I think it makes a huge difference. It really does. Like, it's easy to get away with. I think it's a little bit easy to get away with sometimes with racing games. Not lazy soundtrack, but not needing to do too much with it. And I think they did the opposite here. They got however many people they got together to create this music, and it just bombs you right through these races. And I love it. I think it's super great. It's not one of those games where I'm sitting there and like really focusing on the music, but in a good way. Like I'm not sitting there going, oh my God, this, like to me anyway, my experience with it is not, like race 3, oh my God, this song is so much better than the last one. I'm just focused on the race itself.
Yeah.
But it's never something that's distracting. It's never something I'm not enjoying. And it's always something that, when I go back to that race, I'll recognize and be like, oh yeah, this one kicks ass. Somehow it sits there, even though I don't know what it's called. I can't remember what race it was from, but somehow I hear it again and it sort of flips a switch in my mind. And I'm like, yep, this is one of those ones. And I got that for, I would say, most of these races. Most of these songs.
It does have that quality where like like we said, this game's hard. So if you're focusing on the racing and then for a couple seconds you have a straightaway and your brain can kind of relax a little bit, you'll like come out of it and there'll just be this wild guitar solo going on that you didn't realize was happening. I'm at the point now where I know this soundtrack so well that I'm like humming along while I'm racing to it. And it's nice. It's fantastic. Part of the reason I put this in the Patreon poll to begin with is because I love the soundtrack so much. And like one of the things I like the most about making these podcast episodes is listening to the soundtracks and putting them in the episodes. And I was like, it's going to be fucking great for F-Zero X. I can't wait.
Hell yeah. Yeah. And and it's kind of relentless, but also in a good way. Cause it really doesn't, just like the game doesn't really hold your hand, the music doesn't either. It kind of just is in your face.
Yep. Just
the game is supposed to be as well. And like I mentioned before, when we first started talking about it, it fits with what it's supposed to be. And to me, that is a huge accomplishment when it comes to a soundtrack, especially for a racing game.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. In a lot of racing games, you have other things to focus on besides the music. I mean, video game music in general is great at this as being background music a lot of times. But yeah, this is great. There is no voice acting in the game except for the announcer who has like maybe 5 stock things that he can say. Yeah. And the announcer has like a really, what's the word? Like robot voice. I don't know. I forgot the verb.
Yeah. It's sort of this strange, like, it sounds sort of almost like it almost sounds like you're listening to someone on an answering machine from back in the day, but with but with like, it's a little bit scratchy. It's a little bit faded. I think part of that is just N64 sound quality and stuff, cartridge quality. I don't know what they were going for. I know it's like supposed to be an announcer, but it's also like this announcer that's only for you. Cause sometimes he tells you like, watch out or,
watch your back.
Watch your back, which I don't know. Should I always watch my back if I'm going this fast with 29 other racers? But I don't know when that triggers. I don't know if you picked up on that or not, but
it's weird because you would think it would mean there's someone behind you, but there's 30 cars in F-Zero X. There's always someone behind you.
Always someone behind you. I thought maybe it was when like your rival car.
It might be, yeah.
But it doesn't always happen that way because the rival would be in front of me because I'm not that great at this game. And I'd be in, 4th place, 3rd place, something. Watch your back. I'm like, for what? Like you said, there's 29 or 27 racers behind me at this point. I gotta watch. I gotta watch in front of me. Never mind, this part of the track has no wall.
Yep, exactly.
I kind of like it though. Like it's again like everything else. It's sort of very over the top 80s camp kind of thing, and the voice feels like that too. I will say one of my favorite little sort of sound bites of the game is just the countdown, the 3, 2, 1. I love it. I don't know what it is. It's just a little robotic 3, 2, 1, and then the ding happens. And I don't know. It just everything in this for the sound and the music just fits nicely, and I enjoyed that.
It's got a perfect little timing thing where it counts down the 3, 2, 1 and then goes go. And when it says go, at the same time, it hits this weird pitch in its voice, which I put at the beginning of the episode. So everyone got to hear it, but it hits that weird pitch in the voice on the word go. The car engines all start and the first chord of the music starts all at the same time. So it's like starting off with a bang, and it's awesome.
It's brilliant. Really. It just is. I think the rest of the sound effects are just fine, like the racers and stuff. It's fine. It's manageable. Like I don't know that there's anything that stands out. I don't know if there was anything that you're like, oh, I just love the way that sounded or felt. But I think for me, it was everything outside of the cars, like all the stuff that we've talked about so far. Because the cars to me it was fine. The boost sounds fine, whatever. But none of that stuff stood out as anything special.
Yeah, it's mostly the music that stands out. The rest of the sound effects are just, rocket boosting sound effects and stuff like that.
Like that's
those rocket boosting sound effects and kind of the driving soundtrack all plays into another like really impressive thing about this game, I think, which is that they made the conscious decision to sacrifice visual stuff to make this game run at 60 frames a second on the N64, which again, we talk about all the things this game does to sell the speed that the Super Nintendo version can't sell you. The N64 one does, and it's because it's 60 frames a second. The camera is by default lower to the ground. It's like not right behind your car, but it's lower than the Super Nintendo camera is. And then the music, of course, too. But because they did that, I think you mentioned at the beginning, what you have in this game are you have the 30 cars on the track, you have the track, and then you have some like cloud foggy backgrounds, and that's it. That's all the detail that this game has, because they cut out everything that they could to make it run at 60 frames a second.
Yeah, and I didn't even actually I looked that up. I think I noticed that like yesterday or 2 days ago or something, the 60 frames thing. I didn't even make that connection that would like make a difference. But actually, and when you pointed out too, I thought about this when I booted up the Super Nintendo version briefly as well, is that the angle does make a difference. The camera angle on the car, I know when you're like looking outside of a vehicle in a racing game, it is technically quote unquote third person view or whatever. It feels more like a third person perspective in what would be an action game or something, where you're like sort of at shoulder level with the character instead of like 2 or 3 feet above their head. And I think that gives you a sense of speed because you really see the ground in front and behind you a little bit more. And a lot of the designs of the ground, or every once in a while, they're almost like, it's like the floor will be built in a bunch of panels almost, right? So it's like you're driving on a fence that is on the ground sort of thing, where you just see all the panels sort of flying by you, like if you're going really fast or something. So it almost feels like you're moving faster than you probably actually are, or would be. And all those little design choices, it doesn't matter what's behind you. Like you said, like it could be very empty or mostly empty. I never noticed that as being an issue because everything is so hyper focused on just your racing and your vehicle.
Just trying to make it through the race. Yeah.
Trying to make it through the race, but it's a great design choice. I think all of that is a great design choice and makes all of the feel of it work.
Yeah. You do lose a little bit of like view of what's in front of you because the camera is a little bit lower. So there is a little bit of trial and error with some of the harder tracks because you'll come around a turn and suddenly the walls are gone. And if you didn't expect it and you're going in the wrong direction, you'll just fly off the track and die and have to restart the race. So there is a bit of trial and error with learning the tracks because of the camera, or if you pause the game, you can change the camera angle. You can get a higher angle, which
it's a little bit wider, I think. Yeah. It is
I
higher.
can't do
that's
it.
True.
Yeah, I can't do it because I'm just so used to the default. But
I did it for one race. I did it for one race, and I was like, it's fine. I think it helps in some of those situations, like you're saying. But other than that, it's still, even though it's not perfect, I still think it felt better just playing as the default. I think they made the right choice in making that the default, and even if you didn't know that setting was there, I think it's totally fine. It's a better way to play.
Yep. Speaking of playing, let's get on and talk about what it is actually like to play this game. So we've been talking about it. It's a racing game. I think I don't think this is the first racing game to be on Tales from the Backlog. So good little first one to be on, F-Zero X. Unlike other racing games that, I've played, I think this game is actually pretty unique in this regard, that it is a racing game that is trying to sell you that you're going incredibly fast. And that's the deal with this. You're going 900,000 kilometers an hour as they measure it in the game. And so the way it works is you pick your vehicle and your character at the beginning. They all have different stats for body rating. because cars do have durability. They can blow up in this. A boost rating and a grip rating for turns. Captain Falcon is like the default racer because he's the most balanced. He's the Mario of this game.
Yeah.
His ratings are like B, and C, I think. Something like that.
B body, C boost, B group. Or grip, sorry. Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah. But you can pick lots of different racers. You unlock more racers by beating Grand Prix and stuff like that.
Mhm.
Before every race, you can also kind of tune your car to be heavy on acceleration or heavy on max speed. And they let you do this after seeing the map of the track that you're going on. So if it has a bunch of straightaways, then maybe hit that max speed. If it's a winding track, maybe lean on acceleration a bit more.
Yeah, I'm of two minds about this sort of idea. I like this idea. I find that to be unique. It's not just that each vehicle and each driver has their own sort of 3 stats, like you mentioned.
Yeah.
Which I think the ones I noticed the most out of all those stats was the grip, because some of the characters that didn't have good grip, I was like, I cannot control this thing. So I had to go with ones that I think C was the lowest I could go. Otherwise, I was all over the place. It makes sense. It is what it is. That's totally fine. Depends on your play style and everything. But the acceleration and max speed thing, pulls up a little menu, gives you a little sort of like snapshot of your character on the left side, which are the same snapshots they have like in the manual. So it kind of gives you a full body sort of, and you can change the color of your vehicle as well at the same time. So the acceleration and speed thing is interesting. It's just a dial and it just goes left to right, and you can sort of, I think it's like 6 or 7 different sort of like little sort of areas you can choose from, of like if you want to be a little bit more to the left or to the right, acceleration or speed.
Yeah.
One thing I remembered with this game is, because it's one of the only games I remember doing this growing up, is when I didn't know what acceleration meant.
Oh yeah.
And I immediately went all the way to the left, because the way that they animate it is that the sort of like graph that is behind that bar goes straight up to acceleration. So it almost makes it look like you're going to go faster if you go all the way to the left. So I was like, of course I want to go the fastest. I'm going to go all the way to the left. I'm going to pick as high to acceleration as you possibly go. There's strategy obviously that's incorrect, but there's strategy to picking it depending on the race, right? The only thing is, yeah, if you see like a lot of turns and stuff, you're like, okay, maybe I'll pick better acceleration because I need to sort of go around turns a certain way. Maybe I'll bump into a wall every once in a while. I'll have to sort of really sort of manage my my speed so I can keep up with the pack if I mess up or something. But every once in a while, you get tracks where it looks like there's a lot of turns, but really it's just loops and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And then you're playing with an acceleration that you don't need. And then you have to basically either reset the race or just, take whatever position you get. And, it's fine. They show you a sort of little 3D rendering, like you said, of the map beforehand. But I think unless you like play these maps a few times, I didn't remember some of them, like associate the names with some of the actual like visuals of playing the actual map or race itself. So every once in a while I was like, son of a bitch, I could be winning this race if I just picked better speed, for example. So it works to a certain extent. I like the mechanic and the idea of it. It's just, it would be nice if it was a little more clear, but I understand there's probably limitations to that as well. And I don't know, maybe.
No, yeah, it's a cool mechanic. It's a cool idea. And for people that are better at F-Zero X than I am, it's probably like the difference between winning on the high difficulties and not. The thing is that there are 29 other cars on the track. So like, even if you have a track with a bunch of straightaways and you boost up the max speed, if you run into one of the other cars, then you're going to slow down and need to accelerate back up. And because there's so many cars, it's kind of hard to avoid bumping them constantly.
Especially on the tighter ones too. Like it's honestly impossible.
Yeah. So this was like, I would try to strategize a little bit, but every race kind of ended up feeling the same because I couldn't avoid running into the other cars. And, the cars all have durability. And so I think part of what they want from F-Zero is they want this to be kind of like racing combat, Like F-Zero 99 has like a spin attack that you can do to hit like actually attack other cars near you. This
Yeah.
game doesn't have that. But what you can do is kind of like ram them, try and knock them into the sides or knock them off the edge of the level. It's really hard to do that though. So most of the time I just kind of raced and tried to avoid them.
Yeah, I think, I mean, this will play into a little bit of the sort of, what was it, battle mode or survival?
The death race.
The death race, that's it. Yeah. It's not a battle. It's to the death race. I should have known. Of all games, I should have known it was a death race.
Right.
It kind of plays into a little bit of that. It doesn't quite work. Like I think because you are going so fast and they make you feel like you're going so fast, trying to bump into someone purposely sort of really throws off your balance sometimes, especially if you have those vehicles like I mentioned that have like lower level grip. Sometimes that just like whips you around and you're just like, whoa, okay, I can't control this. And it just, so yeah, every once in a while I would maybe do it if it was really, and I was really beside another vehicle. I would like, okay, I'll press R twice and see if it works or whatever. But you're never really significantly damaging them. So it's more just do the corners right, hit the boost when you need to, use your boost when you need to, and just try to survive, like you mentioned.
Yeah.
And hit 1,400 kilometers an hour a couple times if you can, depending on the race, and you'll probably be okay. But yeah, it's not, it never, to me, it never felt like, oh, this is a race to the death. It just felt like this is a race to the fastest and less mistakes. Like just, that's it.
Exactly. And you know, a lot of the later tracks are pretty difficult to just stay on the track at the, like through 3 entire laps, because they have sections without guardrails and stuff like that. If you fly off the track, you die and have to start the race over again. So you're right. A lot of it is just survival and just trying to win the race. And if you end up blowing up another car, you get a little star on your UI, and I'm like, oh, cool, I did it. But I didn't try to most of the time.
Yeah. Does the star do anything? I wanted to ask you.
I don't think so.
You know, I don't think
I
it
think
does.
It's just
right?
a kill count. Yeah.
It's a kill count. It should be like in the, you know, the sort of like old school like jail thing where they put like
the teardrops.
Yeah, or no, like an etch on the wall or a teardrop. Imagine that. You go back and you get like 3 stars, and
Captain
your car
Falcon's
has he's got
3
teardrops.
teardrops. Yeah.
It's fine. Honestly, the only time that I got that was on those parts of tracks, and some of them that don't have a lot of barriers, where I like bumped into someone, they accidentally fell off. Like that's the only time I got it.
Now, there's an entire mode of this game called the Death Race, like we said, where they basically line up 30 cars on a track with no turns, and they just set you loose to try to destroy all the other cars. Have you tried this?
I did try it. I think you alluded to it a little earlier. It's not great. I think for me, it would make more sense if it was not just a straightaway.
It would make more sense if it was not a straightaway, and the killer thing for this is that the enemy drivers just drive straight. They don't try to attack each other. They don't try to attack you. I never even noticed that.
You're right. They don't.
They just drive straight, and it really feels like they were like, we need to have another game mode. And what can we do? All right, it's a death race. We have a week to program this. So here's a straight track. Everyone's on the track. They just drive straight. And I remember playing this as a kid. We never beat one because that's a ridiculous thing to do, to beat this death race. But we would play and kill like 10 of the enemy drivers, and that would take like an hour. It's an insane thing to attempt.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting that it's there. It fits in like what the point of F-Zero is from a story perspective, but it's real bad as a way to spend your time as an adult.
Yeah. As a quote unquote adult, I mean, people call us adults. I don't know if we actually are, but I don't think it would take an hour to take out 10 cars or accidentally even take out 10 cars if you did this on some of the tracks. Yeah. Because you come close to being destroyed, or other vehicles become close to being destroyed on regular races. Why don't you just play a track for 10 minutes and see what happens? Because it would be more likely that the computer or someone you're playing with would hit the wall a little bit too much and that's what would do them in. Great. Just do that. And it makes you feel like you're playing a similar, like just like a different version of what you've been playing up until this point. And it just makes you like maybe use your aggression or your, aggressive like approach to racing in a different way, but within the same sort of quote unquote like universe or game style, So I don't know. It doesn't, the straightaway thing killed me the most. I was just like, wait, what? I thought it was just the start, honestly. And then it was like 3 minutes. I'm like, well, no, this is just how it is, I guess.
Yep. It is just a pure time sink. And you're right. When you do some of the normal races, especially the ones that have like unguarded, edges of the track, like 4 to 6 enemy drivers will fly off and die during every race. So if you could just, turn that into a death race, don't make it be the regular 3-lap races. And just keep going, then that would be better.
Yeah.
Yeah. Most races are 3 laps. A lap usually takes like 30 seconds in this game. So they're really, really quick races. Again, great game to pick up and play. The Grand Prix modes have sets of 6 courses each.
Yeah, 6.
Yeah. There's 5 Grand Prix modes. You only have access to 3 by default. You unlock more by beating the Grand Prix on higher difficulties, which is not something that I can do at all. So I just live with the 3 by default. And maybe I can try and like use some emulator hacks to unlock the other ones or something.
There's probably some cheat that you can put in an emulator or something. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. In each Grand Prix, you have 6 lives for your car or fewer on higher difficulties. Right. And the last Grand Prix, the King Cup, of the default 3, there's 2 more that are harder. The King Cup, I often would lose all 6 lives during that from flying off the sides of the track because it's just the cars handle a little bit slippery if you're not in total control. You have the like the power slide type moves to help you turn. You can also, I think they really want you to like let off the accelerator when you turn and then like pick it back up. But it is a tough game to control on some of these harder tracks. There's a couple tracks. There's one with a half pipe where if you're not careful, you'll just get in this out of control loop of going up each side of the half pipe and then fly out.
You just go left, right, left, right, left. Like you just, and you can whip yourself right off the track, like no problem. But I played that one actually this morning. And I was just the first time I did it, I was like, and it's so hard to get yourself back.
Oh yeah.
back on
it's
track.
Definitely a panic loop when you start that.
100%. And but it looks hilarious. I just sort of let it go. And I was just like, okay, I'm going to try. You really have to like really slow down because I think that is the only way you can sort of like re-grip yourself kind of thing. Those types of tracks and those types of like designs in the tracks, I think are cool ideas. There's a lot of interesting ideas of what they do with the tracks here because they can kind of just go wild with it like they did with everything else in this game. There's one in particular that's similar. It's sort of like an opposite half pipe. It's the one that's just like a tube.
Yeah.
And you're just
where you're going on
like,
the outside of the tube.
You're on the outside of the tube thing. That, if you go too fast, you can throw yourself right off it, which I didn't realize.
Yep.
So I did that like the second time I did that race. I think on the sort of middle difficulty, because it's like, I got to go faster. That's also one of the races as well. When you look at the 3D map rendering, it looks like there's a lot of turns, but you're kind of only going straight for the most part. But like those ideas, I love that they can do that in this game. Like I love those design choices and the fact that they can just go wild with these courses. I don't think they all work, but none of them make me super frustrated. I'm never like, oh my God, I have to do this race again. Okay, it's just not as good as the last one. And that's pretty much it. And that's, I mean, that's good level design, really, is what that is.
Yeah, there's a couple races where I have trouble getting through without dying, but a lot of times, number one, it's never because I'm out of durability on the car. It's always because I fly off the side of the edge because I was just, going too fast. A couple times, like I will just think I have things lined up right, and then a turn comes and I'm not lined up right, and I I don't like take, that half second to slow down before a turn or miss the good time to use the power slide or something like that and fly off. But when you do fly off, a lot of times it's like, yeah, I got out of control there.
Yeah, it's your own. It's of your own doing, I think. Oh, that's what I meant to say before. When you're mentioning sort of different approaches to sort of taking the turns, and like there's sort of like a drift, I guess, in a way, and all that. I got into the habit of just tapping the gas when I ran around some of the corners, and I didn't really use the other sort of ways of approaching it. So
Interesting.
it would keep my speed up a decent amount, but it would slow me down just enough that I could. Some of the really tight ones, I it didn't quite work for that. But if it was not like a hairpin turn, I could find my way actually around that corner pretty well and find that I would be in the same position I was and still staying with the pack kind of thing. And it helps a little bit more when there's not as many vehicles around you because they're not bumping you around and stuff. But like on the second lap, for example, the second half of the second lap, I was like, okay, I'm gonna start tapping the gas around that corner, and I found that to work. Maybe I'm just really aggressive and have a hard time doing things that like pressing the brake in a racing game is just not intuitive to me. I just don't want to. I just don't want to do it.
Yeah, I leaned on those power turns, the power slides. I did not do like the tapping of the accelerator.
Okay,
so that worked out pretty well for me. Most of the time, you do have to like time it correctly, or you'll just power slide right into the wall. But yeah, that worked out for me. I guess the only other thing to talk about, like what you're thinking about when you're racing, is on the second lap, like you just mentioned, you unlock boost power. The announcer goes, "You got boost power."
Yeah. You don't unlock boost power. You unlock boost power. Like
exactly.
That's what you get. Yeah.
So you get a boost that you can use, but the catch is that boosting drains the health of your vehicle. So you can't just boost all the time that you want to, or you will blow up from just running out. I would guess you can maybe use it 5 or 6 times without healing. Something like that.
If you don't smack into a wall. Yeah.
Right, and that's assuming you don't hit anything also. Yeah. There are health strips on the ground of every track, but driving in the health strip slows you down. So it's always a little bit of risk and reward of how much do you use your boost, when do you use your boost, because you don't want to do it and then come up on a turn and crash into the wall or something like that. Do you go in the health strips? Because if other cars are in there healing up, you can gain some ground if you avoid it.
Yeah, for me it depends. I think until I really got the hang of sort of doing the tap the gas thing on the turns and stuff, I played this game super aggressive. Like, I don't know if it was the music that was amping me up or just because I felt like I was going so fast. Like, I don't know. I wasn't throwing myself off ledges and stuff like that when I played the first couple in the lower difficulty. I was blowing up because I was just hitting all the walls. Like, I was just out of control. Once I got, I was like, okay, I got to rein it in a little bit. I got to play this a little bit more responsibly so I can actually survive. I went into the strips if I was around 50% of my health, and I was not in the top 5, I would say, depending on the race, right? So the reason why is because the risk reward thing of using your boost and your health meter, I guess, or your, so I needed to make sure that I had enough to sort of catch up if I needed to. But it just depends. It depends. For the most part, though, I do think I took it for at least a second or two. But some tracks really try to edge you to not do it because they'll have like boosts in between the two sides of where it is. So like a boost strip or whatever. The only problem with that is just like every other racing game of this era and almost every era is, the rubber banding. So I could hit that boost all I wanted and it probably didn't do anything. So I just took the extra health essentially. And then I could use the boost one more time at the end of the race and try and close the gap. So. Yeah,
the rubber banding is definitely noticeable. And once you get on higher difficulties, you get to a point where like there's no rubber banding. You're not going to catch up to the leaders. It's just really difficult.
Yeah.
That's where I think, being a master of taking all the turns, like knowing the tracks inside and out, tactically using your boost and stuff like that, there's like a really high degree of skill it would take to do well on high difficulties in this game.
Absolutely.
For a variety of reasons. But
yeah. No, I think so too.
yeah. So I think like some aspects of the gameplay we've talked about are a little bit like, you know, the cars feel a little bit slippery if you're not like really on top of techniques for turning.
Yeah.
And basic turns, by the way, not like, you know, going through like really crazy S turns. We're talking just a right turn.
Yeah.
You got to be a little bit on top of some of the techniques. Otherwise, it feels really slippery. The rubber banding can be a thing, especially if you go on normal or expert difficulty. Some of the tracks are a little bit difficult to finish until you like really learn them well and learn where those sections with no guardrails are and be really careful, or fucking take your time in the half pipe. You know? So stuff like that. So like the game can be a bit frustrating, but I don't like find myself like getting mad at this game ever. It's still, you know, despite a couple things we point out as, you know, not being perfect or anything like that, it's still just like a blast to play, to pick up F-Zero X and play it for 15 minutes, play through one of these Grand Prix, you know, 6 races. Each race is 2 minutes long, something like, just pick up and play like that. I don't really care about unlocking stuff. I don't really, you know, I want to win the races, but that's about as far as my desire goes. So this is just, you know, a ton of fun to pick up and experience.
I agree. I think that, like you mentioned a while ago, like, don't take it too seriously. Like, they're having fun with this, and so should you, honestly. And like, if you don't have the handle on things and you feel like, ooh, I don't like the way that vehicle, start over. You probably only put 4 minutes into the game. Right. Start over and pick a different one that has slightly different stats. And don't think too much about the acceleration and speed part of it. I think just keep it right in the middle, especially for the first GP on the lowest difficulty. You'll probably be fine. Especially for the first couple of races that are just like really wide and you're not really worried too much about bumping into the walls. I think, like, you know, play a couple of sets of races. If the first one didn't sell you, play it again, but pick someone different. You'll probably get a little bit of a feel for what they're trying to do with this, because you'll have slightly different stats. And then you'll be like, okay, at least for me, when I was refamiliarizing myself with the game, I can't remember who I picked first. It wasn't Falcon. I don't even think I played as Falcon once, actually, now that I think about it. Because I was like, I don't want to be, like you said, Mario. I don't want to be Mario. I want to be some other crazy guy from the first, you know, group of characters. It's just fun. It's not perfect, but it is damn fun. And sure, maybe I won't play it tomorrow. Maybe I won't play it next week, but I have the cartridge, and even if I stop playing Switch Online, it's going to be one of those games that I will just put in my 64 and play for half an hour, play for 20 minutes. And I might not be that great at it, but I don't care. Like, it's just cool. It's a cool fucking game is what it is.
It is.
And I think that makes they should sell it as F-Zero cool as fuck. Like, that's what it should be called.
It is a cool game. It's, you know, like I said, I don't take this game super seriously. I turn it on, I play on one of the 2 lower difficulties. I blast through a Grand Prix. I enjoy the soundtrack. I enjoy the simulated feeling of going, you know, 1,000 kilometers an hour. Maybe I'll screw up and I'll fly off the side of the track and watch my car fall down and take out an entire city block or something like that. But it's just a really fun game. And it's one that I have a level of comfort with, like the controls and the speed and the way everything handles, that I can just, jump in and have a good time. Who would you recommend as far as like someone for a first time player? What kind of person would you recommend F-Zero X to?
I think, if you've had a decent amount of experience with early racing games, Super Nintendo, even Mario Kart 64, Diddy Kong Racing, but especially if you've played and enjoyed Wipeout, I think this is sort of the Nintendo equivalent of what Wipeout is, because it's got the speed, it's got the futuristic sci-fi, it's got the music, all of that type of stuff. I haven't played a Wipeout in a very long time, like none of the new ones. I haven't tried them. I remember enjoying the early days of Wipeout and stuff, but I don't know if it's the personality of these. Somehow this game feels like it's got just a little bit more going on with it. So if you want a racing game that feels a little bit faster and is a little bit more wacky, and is honestly, I think, doing something different than just picking up power-ups and stuff as like the kart racer and stuff, I think this is where you go. I think this is 100% the place that you go. And it is, like you mentioned, I think pretty much off the top, to me, it is the superior version, especially compared to the Super Nintendo one. I haven't played the GameCube one, but to me, this one feels like it's not perfect, but it's damn fun, and that's what really matters. So yeah.
Yep, exactly. I guess one other thing to point out is you made a good point. This is not a racing game where you're going to play, collecting power-ups, messing with your friends or something like that. This feels a bit more, I don't want to say serious, because it's not a serious game, but it's not Mario Kart. It's not Diddy Kong Racing. Yeah. It is a game that I think is best, played. I can't imagine playing this game multiplayer. I'll just say that, like,
it'd be
play
hard.
It solo, or if you're like playing with someone, local, just pass the controller back and forth, because races take a minute and a half basically. But recommended. I recommend this game to anyone who, wants to play a racing game and hasn't tried it, because it's a pretty unique one in the sense of speed that you get. Again, can't talk enough sugar about the soundtrack. It's just a great time. And now that it's on Switch Online, if you have the expansion pass, you can play F-Zero X. If you just have like the regular Switch Online, you can at least play the Super Nintendo. And then for some point, until some future point, you can play F-Zero 99 until they cut that. But you can play that. So F-Zero is available, and I think that's pretty damn cool. There are, like I said, there's actually, I'm going to open up Steam real fast and find that.
Oh yeah. The indie game stuff.
The indie one.
That'd be awesome, man. Like anything that the indie community is doing with games, and they're trying to like bring back old ones and old feel and stuff like that. Like it's great to see, because they're sort of expanding and innovating on, like, they're not just going to make, B0 instead of F-Zero, like they're not just going to like name it slightly different. I don't know what I was going to say, but I had a hard time finding another letter. Apparently there's no other letters to use.
Okay.
I love it.
Yeah. Okay. So I found the one that's being made. It's called Aero GPX. And it like has kind of like that cell shaded art style, like if you played Sable or something like that. It looks really fucking cool. This is, a classic thing in the gaming industry. Like, Nintendo doesn't want to make an F-Zero game. Nintendo doesn't want to make, or whoever, I forget who makes Harvest Moon, but it's the same story. The person was like, they're not making Harvest Moon the way I like it. I'm going to make Stardew Valley. So these developers are saying, no, they're not going to make new F-Zero. Fuck it. I'll make it myself. So
as they should.
Yeah, exactly. So again, I really do recommend people check out F-Zero X. I love it, but I also want to give a little plug for Aero GPX, because that looks really cool.
I am going to wishlist that, because that is right up my alley.
Yep. Supposedly coming out spring of 2024. So we'll see. Oh, okay. Perhaps people will hear that on Tales from the Backlog in the future. So Yeah, pretty easy recommendation for F-Zero X. I knew that basically before I even started playing it for this episode, but I'm glad that it held up the way that I thought it would.
Yes, it's tough sometimes with games like this. Even just saying the way it looks, it doesn't need to look super flashy. It doesn't need to look like the best racing game ever. But
Yeah.
how they make everything feel brings the whole package together and everything. Like, it doesn't have to be the greatest track ever. It doesn't have to have all this stuff in the background that really fills it in. It is the experience of playing it is what really matters in a game like this. And I think like they nail like 80% of it, I would say.
Yeah, it's good. And a lot of games, like you said, that, you know, I loved as a kid. You know, I played F-Zero X when I was like 11, 12 years old, something like that. I really loved it back then. Revisiting it for the podcast and loving it is not a foregone conclusion. That's
Yes, exactly.
oftentimes not the way it works. And you know this quite well because you are revisiting games for your Nintendo 64 podcast, Remember 64. So please tell everybody, before I start talking about myself, please tell everybody about Remember 64. I guessed it on the show before. We talked about the lovely South Park game for the N64. So tell everybody about the show.
Yeah. So the way I put it, sort of like in the tagline, or at least elevator pitch, like we did with this game, is that I'm going through with a bunch of guests like yourself, and rotating co-hosts and guests and stuff on every episode. It's someone different, or most episodes, someone different. The good, the bad, the ugly, and everything in between. Because the N64 is, and I've used this, and guests have used this multiple times as a description for games that we've played, is kind of awkward. That stage, that generation of gaming, the PlayStation included, I would say, is awkward. You know, things don't look amazing sometimes. They don't control very well most of the time, I would say. And there's a lot of limitations to that technically. So we're going through the entire library of the N64. We are, as of this recording, just under 40 episodes, so just under 40 games through. Some of the heavy hitters are behind us. We've done Mario 64. We've done Diddy Kong Racing. We've done Kirby. We've done Smash. We've done Donkey Kong 64. Yourself, you came on and we did South Park. And everything's a mix, right? Like, yeah, I remember loving, Smash Brothers, or I remember loving Mario 64, or you remembered loving South Park. And you go back and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But there's a lot of titles on the N64. One of the reasons why I wanted to do it was because there's a lot of games that I did not play. I think almost everybody played all the obvious ones. They played the Mario Parties, the Mario Kart, the Ocarina of Time. And then outside of that, I had my Game Boy Advance, or I had my Game Boy Color. So I didn't experience a lot of these games, including South Park, like when you came on. So there's a lot of surprises, whether they're good surprises or bad ones. It really just depends on the game and the episode. I really, unless it's one that I really had fond memories for, like Diddy Kong Racing is one of the ones that I will always love. It's not even fair that, that I can compare that to anything else, because to me, it's like A class, S class sort of game. But I would say 80% of this library I've never played before, or I don't remember playing it. Yeah. And I like the surprises. I like that I can be pleasantly surprised or pleasantly disappointed, if that's a thing.
One of the things too is like, because, for you and me, and I imagine most of your guests, I mean, I listen to the show, so I can confidently say most of your guests were all of a similar age. So most of us did grow up with the N64 in some capacity. So the way that what I like about that with people's weird childhood histories with games is, like you said, most people have a history with Smash Brothers and Mario Kart and Ocarina of Time, but everyone's got like those two weirdo N64 games that they played a ton that no one else has like played or maybe even heard of. And so that's an opportunity to really learn about some weird, cool games on the show.
And it's a little bit selfish, but hopefully it helps with the audience as well. Whereas, like for yourself, when we're talking about you coming on, I'd ask what the guest wants to play, because if I choose something, I'm just going to choose Smash and Diddy Kong Racing 17 times, and that's not one, that's boring, but I mean, I'll play it again, but that kind of stuff. And now this is sort of like a long-term plan. At some point, we're going to start playing some like N64 mods, because there's a lot of people out, there's a mod community out there. Yeah, that's making like new stages for Banjo-Kazooie and for Ocarina of Time, and mashing up, Zelda and Mario 64 and things like that. And like, you can do that with emulation devices and stuff, as they're built to be played that way. Mm-hmm. And so we'll do some different stuff as we go along as well. It's not just every single game, but F-Zero X on the list. I mean, pick a game that you probably, like you said, anyone out there that's listening, pick a game that like you think is like obscure and no one's played or anything like that. I'm sure I haven't played it, and I'm sure a lot of people out there haven't, and we'll get to it at some point. And believe me, we will do our darndest to give it justice.
Nice. So like we already said, I was a guest on the episode about the South Park game, the one with all the turkeys, not the South Park racing game, the first person shooter, with the snowballs and stuff. Other than that episode, what episode would you recommend people check out from the show? If you could give a recommendation for a place to start.
I would say that on level 20 of the podcast, Matt Stormageddon came to the show.
Mm-hmm. Good friend of Tales from the Backlog.
Exactly. And fantastic show as well. But they brought Buck Bumble. So similar to what we've been talking about, how, every once in a while there's, like yourself, bringing South Park. Buck Bumble's a perfect example. Matt said, hey, I want to bring this game that I have an affection for growing up. And I knew nothing about this game. I recognized the cover, and that's pretty much it. And I said, great, let's do it. So not only did we end up playing a game that we both enjoyed, I loved this game. I thought it was excellent. It's not perfect, but I thought it was excellent still, like really great time. We just had a really good time sort of reminiscing about games like that are kind of like obscure or feel like they were really big to you, but they aren't to other people, and you're kind of surprised about that. So I think it's a good encapsulation of experiencing something that is familiar to one and not to the other, and talking about this game and experiencing it over again, which Matt did, and for the first time like myself. So level 20, I called Garden Warfare. That would be the one to check out for Buck Bumble. I think that's one of the ones that stands out to me.
Nice. Awesome. So tell everyone where they can find Remember 64, where they can find you. And then we've kind of camped out on Remember 64 because we just got done talking about an N64 game on the show here. But you also have some other podcasting ventures as well. So plug, shill as much as you will.
I don't know why I do this to myself. It gives me just extra. I mean, I like doing it. That's why.
Yeah,
I do
of course.
It. But the first podcast that I started is called Back in My Day, and we do a mix of covering new stuff and old stuff that is anywhere from mostly TV and movies, but also video games as well. So when we're talking about older stuff, it'll be older movies, for example. Like we'll talk about stuff from. We're picking this sort of thing every year. Our sort of theme will be 25 years ago. Let's watch a few movies here. Let's watch a few movies there. This year, one of our things that we've been doing is going through all the Ninja Turtles movies again, before Mutant Mayhem came out and after as well. So that's been kind of fun to revisit all those. Yes, including the more modern ones as well. We're going through everything. We also did that with the Batman movies. We did it with the Spider-Man movies, all that sort of stuff. So sort of theme our months and our rewatches and watches for the first time around current things that are coming out. And then we will go and talk about that current movie or TV show as well. And then at the end of the year, we kind of pick our favorite TV shows or favorite movies, things like that. So that's Back in My Day. You'll find that across all the platforms as well. And for Remember 64, yes, you can find Remember 64 on all the podcast feeds. Easiest way to find that on social media is Remember 64 Show. I think I have that on everything at this point. So pick a platform. I have it. If you find it on YouTube, which I do some funny shorts, and I'll put up audio and video versions of the episodes as well. It's Remember-64. But I think if you just search the thing, I don't know how YouTube search works. I don't know if that's. I think if you just search it, it'll probably just pop up. So I'm trying to do some different things, and like I said, I'm gonna. I put up gameplay videos and stuff as well. So like when we get to the mods, for example, it'll kind of be a cool thing to sort of check out something different.
Yeah.
And then also if you want to listen to me talk about new video games or newer video games, including like indies and stuff like you're mentioning, with this F-Zero sort of indie version. I play a lot of indie games on my time as well and review them. It's at consolecreatures.com, and the podcast is called the Creature Cast. Okay. And every week we go through games that we've been playing for the last 7 days. Many of them are reviews, some of them are previews. This past week, or at least as of this recording in mid-September, we've done a lot of previews of like Spider-Man 2, Assassin's Creed Mirage. All this stuff is like just barreling in. There's so many games to play this year, and I kind of fit in the spot of being the guy who plays the smaller games most of the time. Okay. And I'm happy to do that because I love the indie games. I love the different ideas and different approaches. So most of the time you'll hear me talk about that. But again, that is the Creature Cast and consolecreatures.com.
Okay, awesome. I will throw those links down in the show notes so everyone can have easy access to them, of course. But I am going to talk about myself in about 30 seconds or so. I'm going to spend some time talking about this Dave. So while I'm doing that, you can assume I say the same thing I said last time on the podcast and go check out guest Dave's shows down in the show notes. Thank you for coming on and talking about F-Zero X. This has been great, man.
Yeah, I'm really happy to be able to go back and play a game like this. I really love arcadey racing games, and this is exactly what that is. And like we said, it's just fun and cool, and I love that.
Awesome. Yeah, it took us a little while to find a game to get you on Tales from the Backlog, but this game came up, and I was like, all right, N64 game. This is the time. This is the time, baby. Let's do it.
Boom.
Yeah. So thank you again, man.
Of course.
So if you would like to support Tales from the Backlog, there are several good ways to do that. The best way to do it is to tell somebody about the show. Spread the good word. It really helps people find the show. Another way to help people find the show is leaving ratings on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Podcast Addict. You don't even have to type out a review. You can just hit the 5-star thing and send it in. That pushes it up in the search results and helps people find the show. If you would like to support monetarily, and again, like I said at the top of the show, vote in some of those polls, get bonus episodes, all kinds of good stuff. Patreon.com/RealDaveJackson. I also have another podcast. So you and I, we're idiots in some ways, doing multiple podcasts. I have another show called a Top 3 Podcast where we do top 3 lists or we draft stuff. It is mostly a comedy show. That is the place where I talk about things that are not video games. Although we do talk about video games from time to time because I'm me. So that's a Top 3 Podcast. It's a good time. A link down in the show notes, just the same as everything else. So thank you everybody for listening. Tune in next week for the next game to come out of the backlog at 1,000 kilometers an hour.